want to bring in City Councilor Tariq Bokhari, who we have on the phone. Can you hear me, Tariq?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you for joining us once again. I know last night was a tense, or some tense moments, just outside of the Metro Division. What kinds of conversations have you had today? I know a lot of city leaders have weighed in on the state of things in Charlotte now with protests. What kind of conversations have you had?
Well, I mean, it's hard to even know where to start, but a lot is the simple answer. And if I was to just pinpoint the first thing that jumps to my mind, it would be some really tough strategy discussions on, do you do a declaration of a state of emergency or not? Do you do a curfew or not? Really some, policy relating to tactical, on the ground enforcement issues have been discussed. And, I think everyone in the stressful times doing their best. Clearly our officers are doing their absolute best, and we're seeing the finest of those men and women who not only, want to get home safe and are putting their lives on the line, but we're seeing the last 4 years of training, of capital we've deployed into programs, of their commitment to understanding escalation protocols all happen at once. So, stories like that, I couldn't be prouder. And hopefully, we just continue to make sure that everyone has free speech. And a really terrible national situation, everyone who wants to protest that has their opportunity, but things stay safe. Small businesses stay safe. And most importantly, our police officers stay safe.
Can I ask you this? The city is not, while we do have the state of emergency, we don't have a curfew. I know when you make a decision to have a curfew, that comes with pros and cons. Can you talk to us about what the con of having a curfew would be?
Yeah, I mean, to be totally honest, I struggle to find a pro on a curfew. If you have a curfew, you need to be fully ready, willing, and able to enforce it. And all of a sudden, everything becomes illegal, right? Yeah. So there's no way you'd even consider, in my mind, a curfew unless you completely deployed a large contingent of the National Guard, because this is a large city. And to be quite honest, it just escalates things even further. And you end up seeing the protesters, and I'm going to separate them in one bucket, and I'm going to put the rioters, those who are looting, and here to do damage and bad things, in another bucket, and they're still going to be out. And if they're in large groups, the police have to stand back and make a tough decision of, am I willing to escalate this and enforce this curfew that's been put in place? So I prefer to give them a little more leeway and not back them into a corner where there's only one option.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, when you say they, you're talking about law enforcement, or are you talking about protesters?
Correct.
Yeah, law enforcement. Yeah, because they would definitely have to be ready to act, like you said.
All right, Tariq, I'm going to jump in for a minute. It's Tanya Mendes here, and I know you're often a voice for the small businesses in our community. So how important is it to you, as we're watching these demonstrations, that some of the damage that we're seeing, some of the destruction that we're seeing, is not happening to some of the businesses that reside in our communities that have already been hit so hard from COVID-19, that are still holding on by a thread, just trying to get up and running? How much concern do you have as you watch some of these demonstrations play out? I
mean, nearly all my concern is in that bucket. It's split evenly between our police officers making it home tonight safely to their families, and our small businesses who are reeling to not be just dealt another blow. So honestly, it's kind of disgusting to me to think that at a time right now where over 10,000 small businesses in Charlotte alone, those are people that have 25 or less employees, they are reeling, like I said, and we anticipate that upwards of 25 to 40% of them may not ever open their doors after all this COVID stuff. And I mean, to kick them when they're down right now, like, if you want to make a point, I understand it. I am just as enraged as many out there, and not even close to as enraged as the police officers I've been talking to, who've spent their whole careers and lives building this trust bank day after day with the community, and someone they didn't even know, never trained, never worked with, completely burns that down for them in a second. They're enraged too. And these small businesses are just sitting out there trying to survive. So anyone out there who thinks that they're proving some kind of point by bashing in the windows of a Chinese restaurant, small business in our town, or whatever might be next, forget about all that stuff. Beatty's Ford and where this happened last night, those are some of our most at-risk small businesses in our entire town. When small business gets a cold, they get pneumonia over there.
Yeah.
And for that to be at risk just sickens me, just absolutely sickens me.
So as you're watching the demonstrations play out right now, Tariq, and you're seeing a lot of the demonstrations that have now moved to Uptown, what's your hope for the evening tonight? What are some of the things that you're going to be watching for? What do you suspect some of the things that the mayor is going to be watching for as a lot of decisions are made as the night goes on?
Well, I mean, as it relates to the decisions from the mayor and the city council, we've made those. So we're just watching, like everyone else, concerned citizens right now. We decided to declare a state of emergency so that we have essentially a set of tools in our tool belt should things need to happen. But really, to be honest, none of that's for tonight. We're not going to call for a curfew tonight already at this time, and that's going to do something. That's for later on. We're not going to call for a stop to all alcohol sales in the city of Charlotte, which would further demolish our small businesses that are just coming back online. So these are things over the next couple days that'll play out. The National Guard, that'll play out over the next couple days. So our decisioning right now, this is in the police chief, this is in our majors and our captains' hands of Metro, of Central, of all those places. And it's a triage exercise. So what I'm watching for is really, to be honest, the calls to action we made all day for our community leaders, our faith leaders, our Greek leaders, all the folks that are in town that we made calls to action of, we need you now. Be those positive influences. Be those influences that prove, to everyone you can protest, you can make a point, and you don't have to endanger lives. You don't have to ruin businesses that are already reeling right now. I'm going to be watching close for that. I'm going to be watching really close for as things press forward, is Uptown and particularly the epicenter going to be a gathering spot? And if so, it goes from lawful protest, which is what we want them to do. We want that to happen, right?
Yeah.
Very quickly, though, it can become unlawful protest. It can become rioting. What we saw last night with bottles and rocks and things like Molotov cocktails being thrown in the direction of police officers, we can't have that.
Yeah.
And if it goes to that point, it's no longer a lawful protest. And all those things that anyone wants to claim that they're doing, well, it really goes out the window at that point.
Tariq Bokhari, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us once again. We appreciate your insight and your leadership in the city. Thank you.
Yes, sir.